some better words. I wish I found some chords in an order that is new. I wish I didn't have to rhyme every time I sing. Wish we could turn back time to the good old days when the mama sang us to sleep, but now we're stressed out.
All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to what is actually the very first panel of IGEC 2020. I am super excited to be hosting this all new virtual format. If you guys are interested in attending, check out inventglobal.com/IGEC. There's all sorts of instructions and ticket information and all that. But without further ado, let's just get into our first panel. So this panel is all going to be about esports careers. Particularly how to get over the hurdles that you may have encountered. I know when I was first starting, there was all sorts of things that I wish I knew and I wish I didn't do, and hopefully through this panel we can help get some of that. So why don't we just have our panelists introduce themselves. Wade, do you want to start us off?
I am Wade Dreadnought Penfold. Probably know me best from the Heroes of the Storm scene if you're a fan there. I'm an ex-professional player and team captain for Temple Storm way back in the day. I later moved on to be a commentator for the HGC, and then after that kind of went down, moved over to games like Battlerite, Apex Legends, and Rocket League. And now I work as a senior employee at Wisdom, being a content coordinator and manager, and building competitive ecosystems.
Nice. And Kevin, you're up next with the intros.
Cool. Hey guys, my name is Kevin. I do product and scholastic partnerships at Twitch. I basically help build high school and university gaming esports programs. I like to say my TLDR, I build stuff I wish I had in school. Nice to meet you all.
I like that. I build stuff. You know what? I often find whenever I visit colleges now, they're so cool. There is so much esports stuff happening. I'm like, where was this when I was around? Dominic, Dominic, welcome to our panel. Can you give us a quick intro?
Sure, yeah. I support PC gaming and esports on college campuses across the country by leading the G4 student program at NVIDIA. I really focus on building better leaders, advancing awareness of gaming technology, and fostering experiences, especially for students within the exploding gaming industry. Prior to NVIDIA, I worked at Blizzard as well as ESL.
Cool. And Gene, okay. First of all, before this call was live, Gene flexed on us a bit, and I hope that Gene can talk about that flex because I want to call him out for it. But Gene, can you please give us an intro, man? How are you doing?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Gene Chorba, and I am Senior Developer Relations at Riot Games. I work with the ecosystem of anybody who wants to build a business or become a developer or do anything around Riot Games to make sure that they can have a full-time job building things around the gaming industry.
Yeah, and Gene, when he first got his job in esports, he was just paid off the spot. Like he was just bam, his first job in esports. So actually, I think that's a good segue into kind of our first topic, right? Many people view esports as a passion, career. These are one of the dream careers. Oh, if I only have a job in esports. And because of that, a lot of people do a lot of work without being paid. Or a lot of people do all sorts of work when they're not necessarily compensated for it. So, Gene, how did you, I suppose, start off, a legs running with a job in esports that paid? What do you think are some advice you can give to people who want that?
So Kevin and I were actually having a discussion about this before it started, and the number one thing if you want to move into esports is my recommendation is have a job elsewhere first. Have done a few years or even a full career, like 4 or 5 6 year cycle someplace or some industry where you've learned things like product development, engineering, in the tech industry or whatever, and then you can come over to the esports industry a lot easier and basically dictate a salary and a position that you really want to do.
Yeah.
That being said, there is definitely an appetite and a reason why there are people in this industry who work for free or for less because it is so much a passion. But you should always you should always be looking for the opportunity that is going to get you paid, because you never because it's still so much of a nascent industry. We have a lot of people who are trying to take advantage or be like, hey, you gotta show that you really care about this industry before you move into, and moving from like another industry into it gets you to shortcut that a lot of the time.
So Kevin, you work with a ton of students, and one of their biggest hurdles, and I know from experience being a student before, was just lack of experience, right? Like maybe they haven't even had a job, but they want to get off a ball running. So what would you say to Gene's advice, which I do think that's good advice, but how would you maybe advise someone who doesn't really have any experience to even get a job, but they still, they love esports, that's all they know? Can you please give us some insight on, that college or academic perspective?
Yeah, I guess like my favorite advice to give is to kind of go map out a drawing board of the different types of jobs that are exciting to you first before you kind of take anything. I think from there, like look up people on LinkedIn who have those roles in gaming and esports companies that you care about. Let's say Riot, Twitch. There's engineers to BD to like concept artists to all sorts of different things, right? And esports is just like any other industry where we hire for pretty much any role you can think of that are traditional to any other industry. From there, I would start by interviewing people who just hit them up, just be like, hey, I'm a sophomore, junior, senior in college. I'm trying to learn more about what your life is like working at X company in this role. And then from there, you can start seeing what their day-to-day is like and start seeing if that's something that's your calling. Second, so that's kind of like just kind of putting out a wide net first. Then second is then narrowing it down to like 5 different things, 3 to 5 different things that you might have that felt more warm or called to you when you did your reach out. And then from there, I would either what Gene was saying is if you're not able to get a job immediately after college in a gaming esports company, tech companies and shipping consumer products are entirely super valuable. And getting that tech experience is super worth it. And being out of the scene for like, let's say 2 years, 3 years to build up experience is totally an okay path. That's kind of what I did too. I did global finance at Microsoft for 3 years. And so that was my resume was able to just stand out more while doing stuff in my gaming club too. When I was at university. So I had tech experience with club experience too.
So Kevin, something you said really stuck out. You're saying you need to find something that like warms to you. And when you said that, I immediately thought of Wade's career because, you've done a lot of different things within esports. You've done the pro player route, then you moved on to casting and commentary. I know you've done tons of content creation, and now you seem to be working more in the behind the scenes. So how did you take your obvious passion for esports and how did you really settle on, okay, what is it I can bring? Like, how do you find that journey? How do you even start being able to unpack, well, I'm just a nerd who loves playing video games, to I have desirable skills that can maybe help esports companies or game companies, whatever?
I think, honestly, the advice that has already been given would be some of the best you could follow is finding other ways to be able to prove your worth as a human being to some of the companies and opportunities that may exist. Because, I didn't have the same level of experience when moving into esports. It was true trial by fire to some extent. It was literally just try and make it as a pro and using my understanding of games and my ability to formulate a sentence to aspire to then translate to a different area of esports and experience things beyond that point. point. So I definitely would suggest the same thing everybody else is, finding ways to be able to get that experience, or at least learn from others who have it, and looking at some of the things that their day-to-day would be. That is something that I think, for me, for instance, I would argue right now, a lot of people, if they're listening and they're like, I want to be a professional player, I would quickly be like, I think you want the concept of what it means to be a professional player, not actually the life of a professional player, because the things that it really comes down to in the day-to-day is not the same. It is not hanging out with your friends, playing a couple of video games and loading up a Twitch VOD once in a while. And so I think that experience and really trying to put yourself in those shoes would be one of my first moments of advice. And if you fail to be able to get those connections or that level of advantage, maybe I would suggest, and not maybe doing this out of like focusing on what your passions actually are and actually creating something from them. And that way it's not working for free. You aren't doing it for anybody but you are going to have a lot better understanding of the experiences when that is your air quote job in the potential future, what that really looks like, and understand honestly the amount of legwork, effort, and thought that kind of comes behind a lot of things in esports that people think are very, you just put it up there, you know, you just put up an overlay on the screen and it's all done. You just play some video games and you're a pro. There's a lot more to every layer of esports.
You know, that reminds me of one of our IGEC, I think 2018 panels. We had all sorts of really veteran coaches from Korea talk about the realities of being a pro player. And I was so busy I couldn't really see that, but there was one slide. I came into the room and there was a slide with a bunch of carrots and whips. And there was this image that was really showing how much grinding and how much work it is. Dominic, I'm curious of kind of moving the conversation towards some of the misconceptions about working in esports, because I think Wade brought up a good point about the misconceptions of being a pro player, but you strike me as someone who fields a lot of questions from people who just don't know the first thing about what it is to do in esports, but you know, they're coming to you saying, okay, what's it really like? What do you think are some of the biggest misconceptions that you hear from young people who want a job in esports?
I actually can talk about a lot of my personal experiences regarding this. I think one of the first things is it's very difficult to come across mentorship in this field. When I had first gotten my job at like Blizzard, I expected it to be where like someone was going to outline all the things that needed to be done, and I was going to use my expertise from college and from collegiate esports to be able to apply that and give my advice for that kind of thing. But really, every job that I've seen, every person in this industry wears so many different hats, and you're going to be utilizing so many different aspects of your experience that there's not really a great way to focus on one thing. I wish it were the case that, like, you know, people in publishing just did that, or people in events just did the events. But realistically, something that I think people just don't expect is that you're going to be doing so many different things: social media, publishing, coaching, project management, time management, all that kind of stuff. So one of the things I would really highly recommend is broadening your skill set and making sure that the things that you're highlighting on your resumes and highlighting in your experiences are being flexible, being adaptable, in addition to being more specific.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I would agree completely. Whenever I am trying to either put on an esports event or tournament or so and so, you know, I'm always trying to find a new talent. But I think in esports in particular, and please correct me if you guys think I'm wrong, I feel as if esports comes across as being a very, very shiny, polished, professional, like we got all of our ducks in a row, everything's good to go. So when people see those streams, they see the big broadcast, they see, oh wow, like this is just a land of opportunity. I want to work in there. When in reality, I think Dominic's right. It's so hard to get hired to do just one thing. All of the best esports employees I've ever worked with are people who you can just throw them into a room and be like, this is what we need to do. Like, this is the end goal. We're trying to produce a tournament. Literally no one knows how to do that, but we know what it looks like, and then bam, we all have to try to do it. So yeah, I would definitely agree that I think versatility is important, which, you know what, honestly, that can be hard for gamers. You know, most of the people who want to work in esports do so because they have a very focused interest. They have a very, very focused love. Me personally, I started as a strategy writer. That's all I wanted to do. I literally just wanted to write about strategy. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to be seen, but obviously I realized you can't really make a living off of just writing about Heroes of the Storm, StarCraft, or Hearthstone strategy. That being said, though, there are some people who have found ways to make it their own, right? To make their own thing and to forge their own path. And I think that's kind of the next thing that I'd like to talk about, right? This panel is about getting over the hurdles of esports, and sometimes that comes in the face of we've tried our best, we wanted to do this thing and it failed, right? I wanted to become a YouTuber, it didn't work out, or I wanted to become a streamer, it didn't work out. How do you guys suppose, and please feel free to jump in on this, anyone, how do you guys suppose someone can kind of get back on the horse and try again, right? What are some advice you give to the person who really has tried to take all this advice and they failed?
So I'd love to jump in and talk about how the ecosystem is not as small as people think. People, like, one of the big things that people come to me and they're like, I want to work in esports, and I'm like, cool, like, let's help you with that. But they're like, yes, I have to work for a team, or I have to work for a company that like a game company that is on their publishing team for esports. And I'm like, no, there's there's dozens and dozens of verticals and ecosystems out there around gaming and esports that are all supporting working with esports as well. Like, you have everything from like WoW add-ons to CSGO style like tournament organizers, or like stat people with League of Legends, with Valorant, with all these other games. There's an entire ecosystem of people who are building out like things to make players better. Like, there's the healthcare stuff where we're looking at how do you keep people healthy. If you have any type of legal background, like, you might want to move into a legal field around esports. Like, people are like, oh, I have to work directly with players, or I have to directly be on camera, or I have to directly affect like the immediate league. But there's so many jobs around this that allow you to either get your foot in the door, or can be an excellent position for the rest of your life, or the rest of your career there, where you can set yourself up in a hugely successful role doing things. Like, I'm going to borrow a little from my own experience with dealing with players and developers and people building businesses. Like, if you want to start something, like, identify a game that's coming out, or identify a game that like has talked about esports aspirations, or either out already, and start talking to people about what's wrong with it. Like, how do you do something around this? Like, we have a game that's pretty early on right now, and so it's like this gold mine where people are being able to do these third-party tournaments. Nerd Street Gamers is able to be like the tournament organizer. Then there's people out there who are doing the data solutions for it, and it's this whole collaborative thing where all these different people are working to provide this very polished product, but it is everywhere.
So, Wade, I don't mean to bring up bad memories, but I have to, especially when we're talking about esports hurdles. And I know, and we know, I say this, I was a very, very firm member of the Heroes of the Storm community. I created so much Heroes of the Storm content, I can't even count. I've been to so many tournaments. I traveled all over the world for this game. And then bam, like that, Heroes of the Storm Esports is no more, right? How does one even begin to pick up the pieces when it seems like all of the information, all the meta, all of the stuff that, you know, we've spent all this time learning about? How does one get over that? How does one just shift? Because although the HGC ended rather abruptly, we still see the same thing happens when games kind of slowly go out of fashion, right? You know, it still happens, but you kind of need to pivot and change games. So what are some of the things you've done to pivot? How have you, successfully moved on?
Yeah, I appreciate using the term successfully there. I would suggest, and I think it relates to what Gene had already said as well. I think the sentence that always sticks out of my head is there isn't one way this has to be. And I think that often in esports, people get so blinded by their passion and the scope that they have fallen in love with that they fail to look outside of it. And that fails to cause them to not understand the entirety of the ecosystem. Number one, the depth of it, the opportunities that exist within it, but also how they fit within that. And I think that third part actually may be the most important element, because it will cause a lot. Even if you find a minor amount of success in any avenue within it, you probably are not going to thrive or be able to grow beyond just that, because you are, again, so looking at, this is what I had in my head for this to be, and this is what I want it to be. And so I think I would really strongly promote to try to think about the big picture. And when you think you've figured out what that is, I would suggest take another step back and look at it again, until you really can't find a way to be able to look at it in any other fashion. And I think that, like, some ways that I was thinking about beforehand this morning that are very clear examples of, like, where you see somebody maybe fail to look at that big picture is, like, how often players, for instance, maybe don't want to do interviews or stream, and not understanding within the entire ecosystem of esports for their organization, for the developer, how much they're actually sacrificing, not even considering their own personal brand. For developers, sometimes it can be causing failure to look down at the ecosystems they're building and some of the lifestyle problems and unsustainable ecosystems that have been built in some ways to maybe foster that relationship better in both directions. For commentators, it is failing to put the broadcast before yourself. For commentators, it's very easy to go, I need to prove myself to this audience so they think I'm good at my job, which causes you to be way more about you than it is about what makes the best show here today, what is the goal for this show, and catering to that. And I think that expands to any role in the world of esports. But I really do think if you have that bigger scope and bigger picture in mind, you're going to find way more avenues to be able to venture off into. And I think, you know, again, as you highlighted, my career is to some extent a pretty good example of that. If you look bigger, there isn't one way this has to be. And if it was, I would be over the second I when I stepped down from playing. Yeah.
And, you know, Kevin, I'd love to ask you a somewhat unrelated question, but first, I just want to say that, first of all, Wade, that's totally true about how people need to focus on making the thing that they're a part of great rather than the individual. So I've worked in esports content and journalism for about 10 years, and what I have seen all the time is that writers focus on making themselves popular rather than making the platform or the site that they're writing for successful. And it's actually a pretty worrying trend within esports content, because we see a lot of esports media sites go down in flames. And I think it's because people, you know, they're more concerned with the fact that I wrote it, more like, is this helping the site? But Kevin, I'm really curious about some of the success cases that you have seen when it comes to maybe young people you've helped mentor or young people you've helped into the scene. And if you could maybe help us understand what are some of the core traits that these people have had, or maybe what are some of the emulating things or the things that people could emulate, you know, like what are some of the things that really, really help you out in this industry?
One is, I guess having empathy is critical. I think society is hurting, and being able to just show that you care and you care about the things you work on to better improve other people and your communities goes a long way. And it's you can tell with empathy in others. Some success stories that I was able to be part of their story is Ayan Abdu. She just got her first job out of college at York University, working on Foxbox, actually working with Jaws, his new company. I think
nice.
Jaws was supposed to be on this panel today too.
Yeah, but he couldn't make it, unfortunately. Dominic, though, you came in.
Yeah, so Ayan for sure. Getting her first job in gaming esports is super exciting. Two is Justin Banusing. He is a sophomore. I think they grow up so fast. Sophomore now at University of Washington. He joined University of Washington as the Gaming Esports Lounge opened, and he's got a part-time job there, working as the first UW esports coordinator.
All right.
And then from there, he is now working at Pipeline, Stephen Ellis's streaming membership platform.
So would you say?
Yeah.
So would you say that you've helped mentor these people, like, to these successes?
I guess when I work with them, it's more like connecting them with a lot of the people I got to meet in gaming esports.
Yeah.
Usually, they've already there's not much I can teach them from like a hard skill standpoint. Mostly, being able to phrase things, communicate, and just kind of think about the industries, like the big pictures that
Yeah.
Wade was talking about, and kind of opening the door more that way instead of looking through the keyhole. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people in gaming esports see like the front stuff, which is like the forward facing stuff is like, streaming, being on a team, or
Yeah.
working at a big publisher or something. But there's a lot of intricacies, like you guys said, from WoW mods to Minecraft
Yeah.
mods. So there's a lot of ways to get activated. Even
Yeah.
like going into, even like like joining your gaming esports club is now not always the best path forward, right? So there's so many ways to navigate.
Yeah, and I want to.
Please join your business clubs.
Yes, yes. I actually kind of want to speak to what you said about, because I do believe that so much of esports, like visually, is so frontward facing, but so much of it has to do with this influencer, like economy, and it really makes it easy to fall into the belief that, well, I'm not popular, no one knows me, therefore there is no way that I could ever enter the space. It just seems like this big closed circle. But something that Dominic said about a crucial need of mentorship, I think kind of ties in what we've all kind of been talking about, right? I think that, the benefits of just finding someone who sincerely has your best interest in mind and is able to listen to you and say, hey, these are the problems, or these are the things that I want to do. And then, like Kevin said, just help connect is super, super useful. So Dominic, my question to you, and I'm speaking on behalf of all the people who are trying to get a job in esports, no pressure. How do you think is the best way to find these mentors, right? How do you think is the best way? And let's imagine that I literally just graduated high school and bam. How do I even find the people that we're all talking about supposedly will help me out?
Well, there's a ton of different ways, and I don't think there's any one right way of going about it. Of course, esports lives on Twitter, so there's one way.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is another that Kevin mentioned earlier, where you find, whatever it is that you want to be doing and see who's already doing it. But another, I think, is just starting the projects that you want to see that's in the scene, right? I've seen countless people get jobs in this industry doing things that they just felt really passionate about, and they all have like one really important thing in common. They were able to answer what do they want to do and why do they want to do it.
The why, so important. The why, I think that's very good. Please.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just gonna recount a couple really maybe not recount a couple success stories. Like Matt from CLG, he was a huge ergonomics and mental health coach, and all he did was walk up to Hotshot and say like, hey, I noticed that your players don't have any are playing really unergonomically, and I would love to help with that. And he proved to himself that that was something valuable, and he started doing it. And eventually people started taking notice, talked with him, give him more advice, connected with more people. Same thing happened for I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter, one of the students talked about 100 Thieves and said like, hey, I would love to do the marketing pitch for a bunch of the things that you guys are doing. And then he put together a marketing pitch and tagged Nadeshot. So I think like the best way is to find like-minded people, to find people that are already doing what you're doing, is simply that by starting a project or starting up whatever it is that you're looking to do, figure out what you want to do, why you want to do it, and then put yourself out there. And then I think good people will come find you if you don't find those people naturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to jump in on that,
please.
One of I will push back pretty heavily on like go seek mentors nonstop, because it's not scalable. And we're ever growing to an industry where we can't do that. But what you're saying, and so people who are in positions of leadership or positions whatever are having to be like, what is a bar someone has to hit before I can start to commit time? So exactly what Dominic just said, like start building stuff. Like on a daily basis, I have people come to me being like, can I do this? And or like, I want to build something, and it's like, okay, we'll go build it. Like, go.
Yeah,
go,
why'd you ask me? Do
yeah,
it.
Yeah, it's like they're like because honestly, a lot of industries that's the thing where you have to go get permission.
Yep.
And to a small extent, yes, you do have to, like, if you're going to start using a company's assets or like their IP, yes, please ask them, make sure that they're okay with that. But at the same time, go build stuff.
Yeah.
Like, go show that your passion, that what you believe in is actually something that can be executable on. And that will, like, bring people to you who want to work with you, who want to help you improve.
For sure.
Who are like, hey, you got this right, but you're missing this. Let's put those two pieces together.
Yeah, you know, and we're going to wrap up our panel now. I can't believe it's already been 30 minutes. What a great conversation. But I just want to say to all of those last things you're saying, some great advice I've always heard is that if you can make someone's job easier on the first time you've met them, on the first impression, it's a very, very powerful first impression when it comes to working with them. So yeah, I totally love that idea of just build something, right? You know, if you want a job within marketing with 100 Thieves, maybe immediately give them a marketing plan you've already thought of, right? That's the type of initiative that I really, really think pays dividends. Anyways, wow, that perfect alarm, that was exactly when. Thank you for setting the alarm so we know the panel's over. Guys, this has been really, really fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just tuning in, please, please, please feel free to use your Umbrella account to network throughout the whole event. So yes, while there are also panels, the main goal of this event is to connect as many people as possible. We have hundreds and hundreds of people. I'm really thrilled, actually. Hundreds of people are logging in, and we have this awesome AI-powered networking. So you can actually just kind of select what you're interested in, and then bam, you're going to be set a whole group of people who are interested in the exact same things. So you can literally just click one button and the whole video call is scheduled for you, which is really fun. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for being on this panel. I really, really look forward to talking to you guys soon. But yeah, this has been our first panel. We're going to take a 15-minute break, and our next panel up, the do's and don'ts of health and wellness in esports. So if you want to be healthy and not have wrist pain and all that, that's the panel you want to see. So anyways, guys, thank you so much. I will talk to you guys later.